So in this lecture, we're going to talk about tone and purpose, those things that we mentioned back at the beginning of this section. Look at these in a lot more detail and how they correspond to the band descriptors and how we can make sure that we maximize our score on these fronts. So let's have a look at those band descriptors again. Now the differences between band 6 and band 7 for task achievement are quite telling. So let's have a look at those in more detail. Band 6 tells us that we should present a purpose that is generally clear. There may be inconsistencies in tone. While Band 7 says presents a clear purpose with the tone consistent and appropriate. Now what does this tell us? In other words, a clear purpose, a crystal clear purpose and a consistent and appropriate tone can be the difference between a Band 6 and a band 7. So if you're stuck at a band 6.5 at the moment, this may be where you are going wrong. So how can we improve in these areas? Let's first of all think about tone and how appropriate our tone is. So the following three sentences you're about to see all communicate the same message, but they do so using different tones. Which one of these is formal? Which one of these is informal? And which one of these do you think is semi-formal? Just writing to say a huge thank you to you for helping us in our big move the other day. I'm not sure we could have done it without you. I am writing to express my gratitude for your assistance in our relocation on Wednesday the 21st of March. My wife and I would like to thank you for your invaluable help with our house move last week. So as I mentioned, all of these sentences are communicating the same message. Thank you for helping us to move house. But which one is formal, informal, semi-formal? Have a think about that. Let's have a look. Hopefully you have what I have here. The first one is informal, the second one is formal, and the third one is semi-formal. We can identify these because of the language used. This should be pretty clear to you. If this is not clear, if you're not sure why each of these sentences is a separate tone, then please use the Q&A function to ask me, but I'm going to assume that you know why these are formal, informal and semi-formal. So let's move on and think about the consistency of the tone, and very important element. It's not enough just to select an appropriate tone, you must also be consistent with that tone. Most students know which tone to take. They're okay selecting an appropriate tone, but there are a huge number of students that fail in terms of keeping that tone consistent. They waver between informal and formal, between formal and semi-formal, etc. So let's have a look at some examples that will help you here. Which of the following sentences would score highest for task achievement when thinking about a consistent tone? I am writing to register a complaint about the rubbish service I experienced in your establishment the other week. I was really quite disappointed with the quality of service my family and I received on our visit to your restaurant last Friday. To be honest, the waiter was really rude, and although our dishes were of the highest quality, I don't think we'll ever go back. Okay, so there are very subtle differences in tone here. This exercise is a little bit trickier, but which one do you think is the best sentence of the three? Hopefully you will have picked out the middle sentence. The other two, there are some inconsistencies in tone. First of all, let's think about generally what are the tones being attempted here. Don't think about whether it's an appropriate tone or not. Just think about what are the tones being attempted. Informal, semi-formal and formal. What do you think? What about this first one? Seems to me that what we want here is a formal tone. I am writing to register a complaint. Experienced in your establishment the other week. Except the problem is that we've used the expression rubbish service. A very informal adjective there, rubbish. Quite British as well, just so you're aware. Okay, the second one, more of a semi-formal tone here. There's some formal language, the quality of service my family and I received, but was really quite a little bit more on the informal side. So, and there's no excessively lofty language, so we can call this a semi-formal tone, which leaves informal for the last one. You can see this in the expression like to be honest, really rude, we'll ever go back. You can see the contraction will, but Our dishes were of the highest quality. That's very formal, very kind of fancy language. You wouldn't say this if you were speaking to a friend, for example. How can we fix the first and third sentences then? What language do you think we could use to make sure that the tone is consistent? Let's think about the first one, the formal sentence. How can we change the rubbish service to something more formal? Let's go with disappointingly poor. That could be good. We got this nice adverb there along with an adjective, an appropriate one at that. The disappointingly poor service. And how about the informal sentence? We've got our dishes were of the highest quality. How can we be a bit more informal? You know, something a bit more casual. What might you say to a friend? The food tasted fantastic. Much more casual, much more natural. You know, my food is fantastic. You know, you can imagine saying that to somebody who you had an informal relationship with. So let's go with that. And you can see now all our sentences have a consistent tone. Not thinking about how appropriate it is, but just making sure it's consistent in this case. Okay, so that's tone. Now let's think about purpose, the other ingredient to a good score in task achievement. Clear purpose. If we take a look back at the two previous messages being communicated, we should be able to see a clear purpose. Just writing to say a huge thank you to you for helping us in our big move the other day. I'm not sure we could have done it without you. What's the message being communicated here? Well, it's quite clearly a thank you message. So we're expressing gratitude. Whereas I was really quite disappointed with the quality of service my family and I received on our visit to your restaurant last Friday. What's the purpose here? It's a complaint. We're not happy. So I recommend opening with a purpose sentence to make sure your purpose for writing is absolutely clear from the very first line. The sentences above are not necessarily going to be purpose sentences. They might be a little bit long, but they're just to give you an idea of how we can create a clear purpose. They might be purpose sentences as well. But let's look at these in detail. Purpose sentences. How can we make sure that they are accurate and communicate the purpose of our letter? Here are my suggestions for opening your purpose sentences, but do be flexible. Don't just use these without thinking. You need to combine the techniques and strategies that I'm teaching you here with your own individual circumstances, with the context of the task, and just with your own intelligence and your intuition as well. And that goes for the whole course. Everything that I'm teaching you, be flexible with it. Don't just use it robotically and mechanically. Try to use a bit of your own personality in there as well. Try to use some of your intuition. Okay, so we're going to look at these in terms of different tones. We're going to start with informal. How can we present a purpose sentence in an informal letter? We'll start with something like just writing to. And we follow with say thanks, say congratulations, say sorry. Notice the say here. Of course, we're not saying it, we're just writing it. But when we are writing an informal letter, it's okay to use that verb. Just writing to ask for something, just writing to check something, and you'd follow with what you needed. Just writing to let you know, giving a bit of information. This is a really nice, casual, natural language. Just writing to let you know, just writing to say thanks, just writing to let you know that, I found your mobile phone last week when I was cleaning the house, whatever it is. I just want to jump in here with an edit to mention that, as you could see from the model answer from a few lectures ago, when we're in an informal letter, we can usually precede the main purpose sentence with a casual opening that just asks how the other person is doing or hopes they're doing well. For instance, saying, hope you're doing well, hope you're doing okay, hope you're settling in well in your new flat, hope you and the family are doing okay. Something like that. It's pretty standard to use in an informal letter. It's not essential, but it is something that would be appropriate and quite normal to see in an informal letter. So if you wanted to add that, like I usually do, then please go ahead and do so. But make sure you don't use anything like that in a semi-formal letter if the context is inappropriate, and certainly don't use it in a formal letter. Let's have a look at formal language. So instead of just writing to, we want to be much clearer here. I am writing. I am writing to complain. I'm writing to suggest. I'm writing to request. I'm writing to inform. I'm writing to express my gratitude, express my disappointment, express my interest, express my regrets regarding. I am writing with regards to. Notice that you wouldn't really use this language if you were speaking, if you were having a conversation with a friend or anybody else really. This is letter language. It's very important in formal letters. I am writing to express my gratitude. And semi-formal is a bit difficult, sort of straddles the line between the formal and the informal, occasionally uses language from the informal, occasionally uses language from the formal. So just make sure that it's not too far in one direction, too far in the other direction, somewhere in the middle. So we have here, I would like to. Basically, we're being polite. I would like to, or I'm writing to, also okay. I would like to say thank you. I am writing to say thank you or congratulations, to send my commiserations or to send my apologies. I'm writing to invite you to. I would like to invite you to. But just don't use any language that is really, really unnatural, that would only really feel natural in a formal letter. It's quite difficult to explain exactly what would constitute an appropriate semi-formal letter. The best thing that I can recommend that you do is to make sure that you read lots of examples. There's lots of good examples in ebooks out there. 51 Letters for IELTS General Training by Mark Griffiths, I think is on Amazon as an ebook. That's a good place to start. But yeah, make sure you practice getting an appropriate and consistent tone. Make sure you practice presenting a clear purpose for your letter as quickly as possible and maintaining consistency with that purpose as well, and you will help to ensure that you'll get a decent mark in terms of task achievement for your Task 1 letter.